we do set the live streams up in advance, and then we have a little thing that says notify people when we're starting. So we'll look into that. I'm not sure what it is. Now that we've gone live, as we've actually pressed the button to start the stream, you should get a notification straight away. So we won't start exactly on the hour. I know it is on the hour now, but want to give people a chance to join us and see. As gradually people joining up, I see how it works. Yeah. Not many at all at the moment, so maybe the notifications aren't working. Perhaps we need. Oh, there you go. There's a whole bunch of people joining. I guess it's batching on there. So I'm not going to talk about anything dramatic just yet, but just say hi to everyone. So Nigel, thanks for letting us know. We will actually look into what's going on with the notifications. I think they are working, but maybe we need to do something different. We try not to spam everybody with too many emails. In fact, that was expressly something that I wanted to not happen. And so when you sign up for our this webinar series, you'll get fewer notifications. The idea is that I'm always going to do it on the same day. I'm always going to do it at the same time. Tune in at that time, whether you got notification or not. And here I am. Oh, wow. Everybody's saying hi. Stephen Bullas. Thank you. I'm glad you made it, because Stephen was one of the people from Chichester who messaged to say, "Oh yeah, nobody got a notification." 74 on YouTube. Yeah, that'll creep up. That's happening. Peter Pan, love that name, in Luxembourg. Hello, Boyan. Hello once again. Boyan is with us. Good old Boyan. He's got some great products. Boyan, I am going to dedicate a webinar to some of Boyan's kit, because he's got some fantastic things going on. We are going to get into this webinar is going to go a little bit longer than the hour, probably. So we won't hang around too much, but we'll let people join up. Ciao from Italy, Musio. I don't know how to say hello in Hungarian, but hello in Hungarian, however you say it. It's that's a little baby, 1971. Helios Zagreb in Croatia. We've got a lot of Croatians actually join us. Nigel says true, and that's why I'm here. Yes. Hello from Austria. Nader Shalabi. Hello, Nader. He's one of our MVPs. A very, very good developer, actually. I like Nader a lot. He's got some interesting things going on. Chichester is about an hour from me, says Nigel. Yeah, there's this video that's going around at the moment with this American person, a girl, I think it is. I think it's on TikTok and Instagram and a few other things, where she's trying to say British words, British place names, and she gets to like toaster, I think it is one of them, and only a Brit will understand how to say toaster, because if you read it, it's spelled toaster. There's a few other weird names like that. It's Stephen says hi to Nigel. Oh, everybody's making friends. Chris, old-time programmer, still programming, 30 years, win 32. Chris, I beat you 40 years nearly. I've been around a long time, as you can see from lack of hair. I'm going to shave my hair so it doesn't look quite so shiny and bald, but there you go. But I'm knocking on a bit, but I'm still full of beans. And Nigel's 6 miles southeast of Gatwick. Presumably not in the air. Salut France. Einstein is in France, in Nantes. Who else have we got? Sao Paulo. Oh, Ronnie in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Lots and lots of Delphi people in Sao Paulo. Very big community. Hello from Brian in South Carolina. Hello, Brian. Technically, I'm an American, but I'm also British as well. I'm dual national. So I became a US citizen in 2013. So I've been here a while now. Barton Stano. Yes, Barton is from near Fort Worth, aren't you, if I remember correctly? He's in the great state of Texas, like all of the best people like myself. I live kind of in the Dallas region. I live northeast of Dallas, but I'm moving in a couple of weeks. Erkelenz in Germany. Toaster, yes, correct. Good spelling, Stephen. Yeah, so you can that should be how you find spies. If someone's a spy during a war, you just ask them how to spell toaster and whether they're like Marmite or not. Frank from Holland, going there soon, actually, in June. I'm going to Amsterdam for the conference there. Chris started back in the 1980s. So did I, Chris. 81. That's when I first started. I actually started programming in the 70s when I was still young and youthful, but I professionally I didn't start until 81 or 2, I think. Nader says I won't miss a webinar about UI. Well, Nader, you might learn a couple of things, but I think this is going to be below your level, mate. You know, it's designed for people that don't really know a lot about it. Barton says the YouTube notifications worked. Paul learned Pascal in 79. Well done. Yes, man of my era too. Hi from Greece. Hi from Colombia. Rural Virginia, small town of about 7,000. Well, I live in Lavon with a population of 3,000. So it's a tiny place. You can literally go left by the goat farm and then turn right by the vineyard. But I'm moving to a place called Aubrey. People from Texas will understand where that is. Not far from Frisco. Everybody hit the like button to help with algorithm. Yes, good point, Peter. If you're watching on YouTube, click on the subscribe button and you will get notified. I don't know how YouTube does it, but we can't spam you. We don't even know who you are. But if you hit that subscribe button and you hit the like button, please don't hit the dislike button. I know I'm annoying. Just pretend I'm not annoying and leave the like button alone. But if you click on like, click on subscribe, I will get no money at all. I won't get one of those great trophies that you see people pulling around either, because we don't monetize our channel. We never have. We're a commercial company and we choose not to show you adverts and things like that. YouTube may show them, but we're not showing them. There's nothing to do with us. But if you hit like and subscribe, you will get notified when we're going live. Apparently there's a C in toaster. Yes, there is. I thought you put a C in there, but never mind. Hello from Portugal. Bom dia. To Portugal. Thanks for the code. Barton, not had time, blah, blah, blah. Hi from Italy. Ciao, Alessandro. Do you remember Turbo Basic? Yes, I do. Only language Embarcadero didn't buy from Borland using Power Basic, the great grandchild of Turbo Basic. Yes, I remember Turbo Basic. And there you go. Our regulars are now sending each other code examples. Okay, well, it looks like from the numbers on the screen we're doing okay. So I think we'll kick off with the slides and everything. I really do appreciate both producer Master and myself. She's elsewhere, but she is always behind the scenes, making sure I don't make a complete fool of myself. Well, making sure I don't make a technical complete fool of myself. But you know, we do appreciate you joining along. I try not to make this a sales pitch. I try to make this a kind of generic Delphi/C++, but it is about Rad Studio, which is the tool that we're talking about. Turbo Prolog. No. So we're trying to show you things that will apply to anything. It is aimed at people that are beginning or intermediate development, but today is a slightly different one. So let me start my slideshow. And get to here, and then I'm going to share my screen. Entire screen. Oh, which one's which? This one. Here's the one. And there I am. So I'll just turn my camera off. So it should still hear me, but not see me. How to develop transaction animations. We'll talk about that another time. Actually, if you use version 12 of Rad Studio or higher, you can actually get Lottie animations. Just Google Lottie, and there's a free Lottie repository, and then you can just play those in the your Rad Studio 12.0 and up applications just by dropping it on your UI. Later on in this set of slides, I do actually talk about some of the videos that have discussed UI before, and one of them does go at length about Skier. So go along and have a look. Okay, so let's start talking about the slides. So today is the fundamental secrets of good UI design, and it's a bit of a hybrid. It's not all about Rad Studio, and there's quite a lot of Rad Studio content in it, but it's also about general UI design and similar information. And the whole thing is presented by me. And who am I? I am Ian Barker. I'm the Embarcadero developer advocate. You can email me, and please do. I will reply to all emails if I can. ian.barker@embarcadero.com. You can also read about who I am. If you go to about.me/Ian Barker, it tells you all about some of the things I get up to. The slides and link and the replay will be here. tinyurl.com/rad12ui Ian B. Right now, that will go to the products page, but later on today, hopefully, or tomorrow, once the replay is available, it will go to a blog post that contains all the slides, all the links of this webinar, and also the replay of the video itself. Well, what are we going to be doing? Well, we're up to 30th of April today, if you're watching this live. And if it's a replay, well, this is what happened on the 30th of April. And I like the playlist in the comments. Yes, you'll see these on there. The fundamental secrets of good UI design. Next time, we are going to look at how to work with any database and do it properly. And I've already had some people asking me some questions about databases, and they're very good questions. One was to do with TFD Manager, which is a Fire DAC Manager control, which is known as a singleton control. And I'll try and explain that in sort of basic terms about when you do and don't need it and what you can do with it. But we're also going to look at other databases like MySQL, SQL Server, Interbase, which I just found out today has got a very interesting use case, which I'm checking up on. And if true, I'm going to really feature that. But just generally how to connect to databases and how to use them with Rad Studio. After that, a book club. We're getting a couple of authors in with some really big Delphi and Rad Studio programming books, and they're going to have a chat with me live, and one of them will be recorded because they live in quite a weird time zone. But we're going to talk about their books and just generally go through some of the Delphi books, talking about the content and saying where you can get them from and what they are all about. After that, saving and remembering settings and options the right way. So saving things in the registry, saving things to INI files. How do you remember what the person's login was? All those kind of things. Maybe even some stuff with something like Web Core, where we talk about storing cookies in the browser and things like that. And then finishing it all off, and I am still building him, we are going to build a sword fighting robot. I'm halfway through. It's a lot of screws and wires to connect, but a sword fighting robot. It's not very big, but it's going to wield a sword. And I'm also going to make, to my wife's disgust, a grocery store checkout. And it will actually be a working checkout. It will actually be able to scan product barcodes and tally everything up. And then at the end of it, it'll print a receipt and go bing, and the drawer will open and you'll be able to put money in and all that kind of stuff. And if I can get it, and I'm having trouble sourcing one, we're going to look at a LoRa radio. That is a long-range radio, which we're going to connect to a Delphi app so that we can see the channels and things like that. Hello to everybody that's just joined. Hello, Per from Sweden, and a few others as well. You're not around next week. Don't worry. All of these sessions, as always, Stephen, are recorded, so you will be able to see them. And can you give a quick minute on what the book club will be about the following week? Basically, I'm going to get a couple of authors sitting down talking about their books. We're going to show some examples from the books. There are a lot of them. And also discuss what the aim of the book is. So the author's idea of why did you write this book, what were you trying to achieve, and also my own opinion of whether it's a good book for X or Y, attitude. And as I did say, if you aren't available, if you can't make it, then you can go to the Learn tab on the Welcome page on Rad Studio. And all of the webinar replays in this series, both earlier in the year and these ones now, will appear in that tab automatically. So you don't need to do anything, they'll just appear. So if you open Rad Studio, look at Learn and click down, you'll see all the videos there. So there's no excuse, you'll be able to watch them and get away from it. Hello, Embarcadero. Haha, yes, I know who that is. Hello to you too. So as I said, today's webinar is quite packed, so expect to be around a little bit longer than normal. Let's talk first about inspiration. Okay, so we are talking about the fundamentals of graphic design and good user interface design. There are two types of user interface type activities. One of them is UI, and that is the user interface, the things that you can see and how you lay them out and what they look like. And the other one is what's known as UX. And UX is the user experience. And that is what happens when people interact with your app and they interact with your design and your creature that you've created from code. And if you want to know a lot more about the idea of good design in general, and hear from some of the best designers there are in the world, then I cannot, and I don't get any money for this, I'm not getting any commission, but I really recommend you watch the movie called Objectified. If you go to hustwick.com/objectified, or just go to Gary's site, hustwick.com, the video there, I think it's like $3 US, but I'm sure that will translate into a relatively low price elsewhere. But you can also catch it from time to time on Netflix and a few other things as well. Just Google Objectified. It is a fantastic video. And they interview all sorts of things, all sorts of designers, like the designers of the very first laptop computers, like the Grid computer. But also, as you can see here, Joni Ive, who is a fellow Brit living in the United States, but used to be Apple's head of design. He's left now. He's retired because he's so rich he doesn't need to do anything, I'm sure. But he talks there about one of the things they... someone says, Sarah says, I deleted a bad review about your live or video on YouTube. No, not true. I haven't deleted any reviews. If people do give bad reviews, that's fine. That's a learning experience. Most people don't. Anyway, back to Joni Ive. He talked here about the Macintosh computer, or more correctly, the MacBook. And he says there, for example, when he closes the MacBook, he says an indicator, like a flashing light or something like that, should only be indicating something when it has a purpose. So you should only be able to see a flashing green light, for example, to indicate that maybe the laptop's been folded up, but it's still turned on, but sleeping. And he discusses that light that happens on the MacBook if you close it up, and says it's timed to be exactly the speed of a resting heartbeat. A resting heartbeat. So the laptop is literally sleeping, it's resting. And when you open the lid, the indicator light disappears because it's no longer needed. You can tell it's on because the screen's lit up. This, to me, exemplifies the whole point of user interface design and user experience. That light doesn't need to be lit up, and they drilled some very fine holes through the edge of the case so that you could see that light, but when the light turns off, it becomes invisible because they're micro drilled lights. So give us more tutorial for the next video. I don't know what you're talking about, but okay, well, you'll find. Anyway, so you know, I can't say enough good things about this movie. If you're at all interested in understanding the concepts of good design, then watch that movie. Now, essential tools before we get into the real nuts and bolts of how you align things on the screen and how things stretch or don't stretch. I definitely recommend Microsoft's Power Toys. Now, the main one that's really very useful for graphic designers and for user interface designers is the color picker tool. So you hold down, when you've installed Microsoft Power Toys, if you hold down Windows key, space, and C, what happens is that window that you see there appears, and there's a little eyedropper. If you click the eyedropper and then hover it over parts of an image, it will actually tell you what that color is. So you can see there, there's like a light gray and a dark gray and all the rest of it. If I hovered it over the red, then it would show an array of reds, and those are called complementary colors. So it's picking colors that are matching or in tune with the color scheme. And in fact, if you look at my slides, you'll see that I stick to the color scheme for the slides as well. How did I pick that red up, for example, for Microsoft Power Toys? I did the exact same thing. I picked it up from the Delphi logo, and that's the same UI color, of the UI itself. Very, very useful, Microsoft Power Toys. Another product that's very, very useful is understanding what fonts go together. So when you create your screens in Rad Studio, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you should be very careful about how many fonts you use. You see some applications that have got 10 or 11 fonts, or they're all Times New Roman, or they're all Arial, or they're all something else similar. And that's actually not a good choice. If you go to FontJoy, this uses AI, but it used AI long before it was a kind of gimmicky thing that it is now. But if you go into FontJoy, it will you can specify what kind of fonts you want, whether you want serif or sans serif, whether you want them good for a certain size, typeface size, or whether you're going to use them on printed output or on a screen as a screen font, or on a web page, because there's a difference for web fonts as well. Then FontJoy will do this for you. Absolutely brilliant site. Definitely recommend going to that one as well. And once you do think about fonts, then you should probably also go to the following couple of sites. One of them is Microsoft Windows 11 Design Principles. Now, the reason that you should understand this as a screen designer is because it will give you lots of very good common sense rules about things like white space, whether you should pick one font or another, and why one font is more important than another. With Windows 11, Microsoft standardized on Segoe UI, S-E-G-O-U-E, Segoe UI, I think it's spelled. We'll see later. And they talk about when to use it, what point size to use, and all the rest of it. If you want your apps to look good, this is a free site that will make your apps look good by following the rules that they've got on there. They talk about dark mode, they talk about light mode, they talk about how big a font should be, what font you should pick to use if you're going to target Windows 7, for example, if you're really crazy, Windows 8.1, Windows 10, Windows 11. You should only really nowadays be targeting Windows 10 and 11. Those are the most common versions. There are people out there that are still using older versions, but most of those are deprecated now. And in 10 or 11, the only games in town, really. And 10 is about to be deprecated by Microsoft as well. So follow these design principles, and you can't really go wrong. They're quite extensive. There's a lot of information on there, but it will help you understand how to design good Windows apps. And the same is true for mobile apps. There's an Android design guideline, which varies, in my opinion, on whether it's good or bad. If you go to tinyurl.com/Android design IB, so that's my initials, Ian Barker, it will tell you all about layout and content and how you should or shouldn't use components, how you should use a nav bar, what the nav bar should do. Interestingly enough, and I actually admire them for this, the first section that they come to in their design guides are about usability or accessibility. And I think that's actually something that's missed by a lot of people, that your applications might be used by people that have disadvantages. Like, for example, they may have restricted movement in their hands. They may not be able to use their hands at all. They may be deaf. They may be blind. We have at least one developer I'm aware of that is completely blind, and he programs in Rad Studio despite being blind, which I find awe-inspiring, really, and a humbling experience. He has got some problems, which is how I know about him, and the problems are making with there's a couple of things that we've missed on accessibility. But the fact that the Android design guidelines start with accessibility should be really admired, I think, because it's somewhere to start to think about. Not everybody has the same issue, as you. And actually, I have a little known issue as well, that my eyesight, I have quite severe floaters, these little things that float in your eye field of vision. So I prefer to use dark mode all the time. The reason is that I can't see the floaters in dark mode. But in light mode, where the screen is very bright, they actually interfere, and they're just big enough that if the text is small and I am having a day where I see a lot of these floaters in my visual field of view, it can interfere with the text. And I don't get that with dark mode. So all of those that say I don't need to support dark mode, I hate you. you should, because a bright white screen is not good for someone like me. Charlie, I'll talk about high DPI in a moment. Actually, I discussed that a little bit later. Red-green color blindness is more common than most people. Yes, that is in fact true. My father-in-law has got red-green color blindness, despite the fact he was an engineer and therefore had to wire things up all his life. But apparently he managed to do it without blowing anything up. And along those lines as well are also the Apple design guidelines, which are a similar thing to everything else, but it basically just tells you how you should design according to their rules. And Apple are really admired as a company that are, at the forefront of design. Not so much apps anymore. I think they've kind of lost their way a little bit since Johnny Ive left, but definitely still admired for their aesthetic, shall we say, of their applications. Now, if you're a student of graphic design and design in general and user experience, then this book is essential reading, and it is called The Design of Everyday Things. There is also an earlier version called The Psychology of Everyday Things, also shortened to POET, Psychology of Everyday Things, POET. And The Design of Everyday Things is by a guy called Don Norman. He's the godfather of usability design and psychology, usability psychology. And he actually has a type of door named after him called the Norman door. If you've ever gone up to a grocery store or some other place and gone to open the door and it's got a handle on it and you go to pull it and actually it's a push door and you go, oh, I'm an idiot. I didn't know I had to push it. That is not your fault. That is called a Norman door. It's something that Don Norman points out as an example of bad usability design. Because if a door should be pushed, it shouldn't have a handle that you can pull. It should have a plate or some other pad that you push. So it's obvious just by looking at the design of the door that you can push it. Charlie Heap says, wonderful book. I learned about affordance from that. Yes, indeed, Charlie. The minute you say the word affordance, it means that I know that you know what you're talking about. Affordance is a term that was coined by Don Norman, or at least made popular. Affordance is when a button looks like it should be clicked. And a door has affordance. If a door has a handle, the affordance is that you should be able to pull that handle and the door will open towards you. If the door doesn't have a handle, then the implication is, the affordance is that you should push against the door and it will open. So the Design of Everyday Things, it is the Bible of user interface design. Hello, Let's Talk Gaming. Good evening. And this is another book which is absolutely hilarious, as also very worrying, and that is called Don't Make Me Think, from an author called Steve Krug. This is more aimed at website developers than user interface developers or application developers, but most of the rules that he has in there, most of the thoughts, shall we say, he has in there make sense. For example, one of the things that you hear is that users are not too stupid to use the program is badly designed. And I agree with that to a certain extent. But if you think about it, when I get people come and say to me, oh, I'm sorry, I'm really bad with computers. They're not really bad with computers. What's happened is the computer is not obvious enough to know how to use it. And Steve Krug says here that you really shouldn't make him think about how to use the application. It should be as obvious as you can make it. There are some things that cannot be made completely obvious because they're just naturally complex, and trying to simplify them down, there's only a certain amount you can simplify until they no longer work. But generally speaking, it should be you do not make the user think. And actually, this is a principle that I hold to in these these webinars. I try and make it as graphical as possible rather than code. I do show some code later, but it is about you understanding exactly what I'm talking about. Essential reading, don't make me think. Here's a link, and who's the author. I couldn't make it more easy, could I, really? And when you think you know everything, you should go to a very old website, which always makes me laugh. And this is the Interface Hall of Shame. And it's absolutely hilarious. It's very, very old now. It's like traveling back to the 1990s, the late 90s, when the web was just about existing. If you want to time travel, here is one to go to. And go to hallofshame.gp.co.at/shame.html. It's a long URL. It's a very old website, but go there because it talks about all the bad things you can do with your user interface design. And there's just some really, really, you look at it and think, oh boy. And I'll give you an example of some of those. This one here, this is a animated GIF just to show you that when you click on the tab, like compatibility, it suddenly scrolls to the front, which means that your muscle memory, which is what we call, the idea of remembering where to click something, is completely destroyed, because as you click, the tabs move around and you can't tell which row is now the active one and which one isn't the active one. And likewise, you'll see on the bottom right-hand screen there, behind the guy with his holding his head in his hands, go, what? There is a really awful screen that's got an totally inappropriate graduated fill with a really horrible shadow behind the Comic Sans MS font or script font, which is almost unreadable anyway. And it's pixelated because they've used a terrible way of drawing it on the screen. And that is a good example of how to do it wrong. Likewise, above that is a user interface design. I think this might be from one of the early organizer type apps, and I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. Might be Card Box or something, but anyway, but you can see just look at the bewildering amount of tabs. Which one's active? Which one isn't? Is it all neighbors? Is it, W city? It's just absolute nonsense. And this is the kind of thing that you should avoid. And as Peter Pan says, users ignore designs that ignore users. And that's absolutely true. If you create a tab box like that, do not do that. You'll see now in Windows, a lot of these settings boxes have got a left-hand section with all those what would be tabs now listed out. And therefore the muscle memory is that you click on the left and the right hand portion changes to a context and mode that makes sense. So user interface Hall of Shame, very, very funny site, but also with a purpose. And also I put together a little playlist as well. And I apologize, quite a few of them are me in there, but I do a lot of these things. Actually, I think even in DelphiCon 2021, I think I presented that, so hosted it. So I think even in Ray's video, I still turn up. I apologize, more in, but I kind of do a lot of UI stuff, so that's where it goes. But go to the YouTube site, UI playlist E&B, and there'll be some there. I will add more to it, including the video that we're watching at the moment. And you'll see those there. So there are a few videos from previous URs. As we do more, as we find more, I'll add to our list. Okay, so that's worth going to have a look at. Ooh. Oh, by the way, Ray Konopka, brilliant guy. Got a lot of respect for Ray. Knows a lot about component design. One of the things you really should do, at a very bare minimum, if you do nothing else, please support dark mode. And this is kind of a personal beg from me. As I said before, I do get these floaters in my eyes. I can see perfectly well. I'm not blind or anything like that. I'm short-sighted, which is why I have glasses. But if you support dark mode, you will make my life a lot easier, and other people that have visual issues as well. Some people get migraines and things like that. Dark mode helps with that. Others, they might be hungover. It doesn't have to be an illness. It could be self-inflicted illness. But dark mode just is a little bit more sedate, shall we say, in the mornings. But if you want to support dark mode, there's two things you can do. First of all, go to Get It and download the Windows styles that are there. There's in dark. They make it obvious. One's dark and one's light. If you've got Windows Rad Studio 12, then you can choose the impressive dark version and impressive light version. Everybody does have it already in Visual Studio theme modus. Yes, but this is Rad Studio, but not Visual Studio. Updated ebook. Yes, okay, I'll come back to these questions later. The other thing to do there is if you want to detect dark mode on Windows, then go to my GitHub page there and look for Delphi dark mode and just include that unit in your app. And it will then detect dark mode, and you just give it two themes that you want to use, the dark mode theme and the light mode theme. It doesn't have to be this one, it could be anything. And it will automatically support them. One of the questions says, do you know how to make custom form shapes? Yes, in fact, later on I'm going to show you how to do a form with a hole in the middle. So that will probably be what you want. Suppose I have a system that the interface is like an apple fruit. Yes, you can do that. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Good containers make life easier. So for VCL apps, you should put all of your controls on a panel. And when I say panel, I would say panels, and it can be toolbars as well. But the reason that I say panels is because it basically is the ultimate container for your controls. It also makes positioning them a lot easier. It also makes the ability to turn things on and off easier. So let's say a set of controls, as we said before, an indicator, when we're talking about Johnny Ive, an indicator should only have value if it's indicating something. If it's not indicating something, then you don't need to show the light. And the same with your controls. If your controls have no purpose in the mode that you're in, say a little radio button that says choose dates automatically, and then when you swap the radio button it says choose dates manually, don't show the date picker boxes if you're saying choose them automatically, because they have no purpose. Well, you can go through and close, make all the labels and the date pickers invisible manually, or you can have them on the panel and just change the visibility of the panel. A lot easier. But we'll also talk about this in a minute, about why it makes it even easier to actually line things up on the screen. And by the way, the one thing that's useless about a panel, and that is the caption property. Nobody uses a caption property, and in fact you should actually blank it out, remove it, empty it, set it to spaces, because there are some controls that will become transparent in certain themes, and if your panel's got a caption on it, that caption will become visible, which you don't want. Even though you think you made it visible, it will show up under certain themes, which is a pain in the neck. So if at all possible, if you're using a panel, kill the caption property. If I had my way, the caption property would be irrelevant on a panel, and we'd get rid of it. But apparently, backward compatibility, we need to keep it. So that's it. And for FireMonkey FMS apps, the equivalent control is a T layout control. And it's got several of those actually in FireMonkey. There's T layout, T scale layout, T grid layout, T grid panel layout, T flow layout, T flow layout. Break is kind of a break in the flow layout, and then buffered layout. I'm not going to talk too much about the layout controls. I see lots of questions being asked, and I am going to answer them shortly. Can you demonstrate how you create a shadow or 3D font? Yes, I can do that. With FireMonkey, you just drop a shadow on the label control and it'll automatically do it. With VCL, you can cheat. Usually what you do is you create a label control, make them both a duplicate of it, make them both transparent, and then set the one that's behind to be some shadow color that you want. And then set the text to the same caption on both, and then just offset them very slightly by a couple of pixels. But there are other ways of doing it as well. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Lots of questions this week. Very good. So yeah, it does the same thing as that. Now I'm going to only show you examples of VCL at the moment, because FireMonkey has just got so many other things to do. Now, when we talk about alignment, there's an unfortunate with TRZ panel. Yes, Raise's panel does do shadows automatically. The Satis Bass. So if you use the Konopka controls, the KS Raise / KSVZ controls, you can. It's got a shadow property in there. And does all sorts of lovely things as well. And you can have a shadow border, shadow text. It's got a raised label that's got text on it as well. So, and it's 3D, and you can change it to have bevels and stuff. So alignment. There's two types of alignment, and people get confused about these a little bit. The first one comes when you right-click on a control and select align. It's actually position, I think. And unfortunately, the dialog that appears says the word alignment at the top. And when you select center in the window, that is that's just positioning your control in the center of your form. It is not alignment. It's not something permanent. Okay, and that's one type of thing. So the important thing to remember is it doesn't anchor permanently. It is useful, that box, for imposing some neatness on the screen. So everything's lined up. So that's in the center of the screen, having labels all lined to their left sides or right sides if they're right aligned, making sure that you've got consistent white space between groups of controls, consistent margins. That's what that right click alignment does. However, the align property, which you see in our little object inspector there, is different. And what that does is controls the alignment of the actual control on the form permanently. So if you select align top, then it will permanently align that control to the top until you pick a different type of alignment. That's the align property of the control. Alignment, the word alignment underneath it is the text of the control. So if it's a panel and you select alignment center, then the caption of the panel will be centered. And if you select alignment left, excuse me, then the text will be aligned to left, and right is right, you know. And with FireMonkey, it calls it leading and trailing, but it's the same thing. You'll play around. If you get to use a VCL first, then you'll work out what FireMonkey does. The align property aligns to the parent. So if the control is a panel and it's dropped on the parent, I'll show you that in a minute, then if you select align top, then it will align to the top of the parent. There are also some other control properties, margins and padding. Now, the margins only really matter if you say align with margins, and the padding only matters really if you've got something inside the control. So it's got a child control dropped in it. And for the form, then it would be anything that's on the form. The padding would create a kind of margin inside. But if it's a panel control and you drop a text box in there, for example, or a memo control, the padding would make it so that when you said align the control, the memo control to the panel client side, the padding would make it have a little gap there. And yes, as Stefan says, oh yeah, and align with margins. Correct. There is a property called align with margins, which is I'll show you in a moment. And when you select that and you select the margins, then it will work. Now, before you do any alignment, if you don't have any anchors set, and the align property really just controls the anchors, the default is left and top. And so as you can see here where I'm sizing that panel, excuse me, that panel, the I am a panel, doesn't do anything because it's not anchored and it's not aligned, and it would look really weird. So if this was full screen on a 4K monitor, that's going to look very, very odd. However, if I now select the align property and say align it to the top, now when I drag that form size around, you can see that the thing is anchored. Now, align property actually controls the anchors, as Stefan says about the anchors. So, oh, you've covered that one too now. Yes, I have. And the align and the anchors do the same thing. So the really align client just says anchor to the left, top, right, and bottom, and make it the size of the screen. Whereas an anchor would just, you know, without the align property, if it said AL none and you selected those anchors, you could pick it any size. The other alignment property is align with margins. as was pointed out earlier. So if I tick that box and say align with margins is true, and then I set my margins, you'll see there that the controls have now got a gap around the edge. They're not actually all the way to the edge of the form. And I've actually set different margins for those two controls. So there's one panel and another panel. But now when I drag that form around, as you can see in there, you can see that they're all sized correctly. Okay. Now, all well and good. Everything looks nice and dandy. What about the actual form itself? Well, there are a couple of things that are appropriate for you to look at in the form. Number one is the borders. Now, form borders under Windows actually have a very specific look, and you can change that, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But by default, there are a couple of form border types. Okay, and they're all pretty much of a muchness. The first one, which is the default, is sizable. Now, you saw me in my previous little screenshot there where I was dragging things around. I could do that because the form was sizable. And so it meant that the form was not fixed, that you could pick it to any size you want. You can hit that maximize button, which is the button to the top right middle. So the square, and hit the maximize button, and the form or the application will maximize to full screen. However, if I chose form style dialog, a couple of things happen. First of all, some of your icons suddenly vanish. And the reason is that by default, they don't have the ability to minimize or maximize a dialog style. It looks very similar under Windows 11. It looks slightly different under Windows 7 and 8 and 10. But dialog is really used for pop-up dialogues like, are you sure you want to launch thermonuclear war, for example, or something like that. A question dialogue or a modal dialogue, or do you want to save your changes, yes or no, that kind of dialogue. And the other one, the other type is a tool window. Okay, and you can see in the right hand menu there it says size tool win and BS tool window. The tool window has got a slightly different button. You can see there's a little cross, a red cross in a red box. This is a window style. I don't think it's consistent, but the idea behind the tool window is that you might have that floating and showing all the time. Now, those of you that use something like Photoshop or GIMP image editor or something like that, you'll see these tool windows pop up a lot, and they tend to be dockable, and you can dock them to various dock parts of the screen, which the dock controls do exist in Rad Studio. You can use docking if you want to. But when they're floating, they have a tool window. So the caption bar is usually slightly smaller, and then that little red cross appears in there, that actually white cross in the red box. And the idea, the reason it's red is by clicking that, you're basically closing it and cancelling what you were doing. I don't understand the logic behind it, but there you go. Now, some people use these dialogue type border styles inappropriately. Okay, and I would say just don't make it weird. Okay, you should only really have an app with sizable borders or fixed, which is another option. If you see just above on the right hand image there, it says BS single. That's the same as fixed. So sizable, you can drag it around and resize it, and single is the size it is. It doesn't, you can't change it, and it's the size, whatever size I designed it at. But if you also make an app and give it a tool window or a dialogue style border style, it's going to look weird. And your users are going to think, what the heck is going on here? Because it just looks wrong. It might not look wrong to you, but it is wrong in the general guidelines that we talked about earlier with Windows 11. And your customers or your users are going to be very confused. So use them appropriately. The most common ones you'll use are sizable and single. Now, if you have a recent version of Rad Studio, so I'm talking to you, the people that still using Delphi 7 or something like that. I know who you are. There are lots of you out there still. But let's say you're using Windows XE, Rad Studio XE, or Rad Studio 10.2 or something like that, a very older version, good few years old. Why do you care about using a later version? Well, the reason is that we added in, I think, 11.0, don't quote me on that, but the ability to have DPI awareness, and that is the resolution that your app is shown at, the resolution that your desktop is at. When you enable this, it means that your apps are scaled properly for something like a 2K or 4K monitor. Okay, it's aware of your DPI. If you turn it off, it will not scale. Now, you can make those older apps like, I love the yellow Delphi 7 IDE, says Satisbas. Yes, whatever. You're missing so much from Delphi 7. But yes, I get it. The IDE is awesome with Delphi 7. I understand. But anyway, to go back to this, DPI awareness, quite important. Also, you've got execution level as invoker there. That could be as administrator. So if you want your app to run in administration mode because you're going to do something horrible like reformat the hard drive and something like that, you need the ability to have it launch as a what's the word I'm looking for? Administrator mode. So yeah, as invoker, if you change that, it'll do that. So that's one of the other reasons. The other reason as well is that you get some extra bells and whistles on the controls, like, for example, the elevation required checkbox. Satisbas is apologizing for liking Delphi 7. Hey, it's good idea. I work on some apps that still use Delphi 7 because the people won't upgrade at the moment. Anyway, some of the extra controls that you get in later versions of Rad Studio include this ability to check that checkbox, and then your button has the official Windows shield. That shield is drawn by a Windows API call. So if in the future, let's say Windows decided to change that from a blue and yellow shield to an air raid siren or a target or something, an exploding bomb, or who knows, something, a unicorn. When you tick elevation required, it will actually still show the right graphic. Okay, it's not embedded in your app. It's using Windows API to get what that graphic is and drawing it on there. But that's something that you can only get in recent versions of Rad Studio. Likewise, the other thing that you can do is customize your title bar. And that's kind of useful as well. So you can actually change quite a lot of things, like the height of the title bar, whether it's transparent or not, whether it's colored, if it is colored, what color it is, whether it's going to show the icon, because by default, most of your apps will show an icon, and that might be the Delphi icon unless you've changed it, or something like that. The other options that are there are, for example, this one, which is kind of useful, and that is you can change the alignment of the caption. So if you really wanted to, you could have your caption aligned to the right. Now, I would actually recommend you don't do this because your users are used to... Satisbas says he does use Delphi 12. Good. Then you will not have to leave the webinar. Yeah, I would recommend that you don't mess around with the caption alignment. You want your users to be familiar with the user metaphor, the design metaphor that Windows has got. So all your other apps in Windows align to the left, and you suddenly start aligning your stuff to the right, then you're going to look weird. And looking weird is not a good thing, for users. You've got to try and look like you fit in. And in fact, on Linux and Mac OS, you'll find that the controls at the top will change so that they are appropriate for Mac OS and appropriate for Linux. You will not get the Windows style boxes, minimize and maximize and all the rest of it. Everything's reversed on Mac OS, for example, so all of those controls are on the left. And so on and so forth. Excuse me, I'm just going to drink a drink for a second. Doran Adler says, and it's a very good point, the reason that you might want to align your captions to the right is for Hebrew. And the same for Arabic and any language that is right to left reading. If you want to have your script so it appears correct, then you can align it to the right like that. That's a very good point. I apologize for thinking like an English-speaking person instead of like a world person. But yes, that's what it does. And it's one of the features that you get in the later version of Rad Studio. So let's go to some questions and answers. And whilst we're at it, I think I will turn my app to close. Hold on. There we go. And let's open Rad Studio and talk about the IDE. So here's an app. I'm going to turn off the custom. I was playing around with this when I was creating some slides. Let's turn off the custom title bar. And what were some of the questions that we've got? Because we've got quite a lot. P charter where the caption is stored is not required, actually. You just set the caption and off you go. It will work. When you create your own VCL style, does it override the style of the title bar? Yes, it does. Your own styles can change any visible part as long as you've got the style manager enabled. So that was a question. I'm going to just show that on the screen, I think, just like that. Does it override the style of the title bar? Yes, it does. And Doran said about the caption aligning, where we talked about having it aligned across the right down there. It's good for Hebrew. Yes, it is. And in fact, I'm going to make myself appear down there. What else? If you change the caption, the find window handler will still work. Actually, that's a good question. The reason that find window has got a problem is that your application has an application window, and find window handler is really looking for the applications window, but I think you can enumerate child windows as well, but it just depends on the code. But yes, if you change the caption, you're looking for Windows handle that's got specific caption, I think you can do that. There's a lot of example code to do that. Kevin says, I need to know how to get at the icon package after installing it. How are you installing it? Is it from Get It? Because normally it will open the folder and tell you where it is. If you're on Windows and you want to get to it, you can, let me just open a window and let's go and see. Let me go to here. I think, I know you can't see this, it's just because I'm actually on my PC. I think, yeah, I'm not sure what the answer to that is, how you find it. I think it's normally users public documents. Hold on. Yes, it was installed by Get It. Okay. All right. I think I'm just going to pull this up. I think the icon package that you're talking about is going to be found in here. So users, I'm just going to pull it up. Users, public, documents, Embarcadero, Studio, and then whatever your IDE is. So if you're using 12.1, which I am, then it's going to be, or 12.0 and 12.1, it'll be 23. But there are earlier versions. I've got like several installed on this machine. But I think the icon packages get installed in here. I can't swear to that, but I'm not sure. I would have to test that myself and find out. I do recommend a really good package if you ever want to find things called Everything. Okay. And this tool is quite incredible. It's from a company called Void Tools. This is their website here, voidtools.com. It's completely free, but you can find absolutely anything you want immediately. So if I was to try and find all my PowerPoint presentations, as you can see, it's instantaneous. Not like your Windows search, which is absolutely useless. I've used this on every machine I have. It is absolutely outstanding. I'm not going to type in any other searches because this is actually a real machine that I use, and I don't want you to go, oh, he's got that on his machine, and some confidential document appears, which would be bad news for me. Is there any way to apply Delphi styles over third-party components such as DevExpress? Yes, if they support styles, which most of them do, then it will just work. The only real way of finding out is to actually ask DevExpress or TMS and see. But yes, I mean, most of them now support styles if they're VCL. I think DevExpress don't do FireMonkey anymore, but I could be wrong. But certainly TMS have their own ways of doing theming anyway. They have their own kind of like panel styler, I think they call it, or something like that. But they support themes. And let's see what else we've got. Do the raised components in 12.1 now fully support high DPI? They don't in 11.3. I don't know. I know there was some work done on the raised components for 12.1. I couldn't tell you what those changes are. Sorry. But I would imagine that they do. Francis says, joined late. It was on GB News again. He's some kind of like a hero now. I know, Francis. So missed the reminder. Interesting development as the NHS now recognise just two genders. Oh, okay. Good. Odd. National Health Service of the UK is a very bizarre thing. It's completely free. So Charlie, sorry to miss your question there. I don't know is the short answer. I'm guessing they do because of the way that they would work in the app. But try a trial version and see. I'm sorry, it's not a very satisfactory answer. If Ray or someone's on, if they could ping in the messages, that'd be great. I use styles. Nader's got an answer here. See, I knew. He used with DevExpress and it works, but has a unit included from style controls. Oh, okay. So what he's saying is Nader's saying that DevExpress does work with styles, but it's a little bit thing. Let's see what Oscar says. When we use DPI awareness in per monitor v2 and the scale of the operating system is greater than 100%, the checkboxes appear to be larger. Is there a way to fix this? When you say larger, do you mean larger and compared to? I'm going to turn my camera off for a second because I'm hidden anyway. Larger, you mean oversized? That again is probably fixing 12. We did a lot of different fixes. I can't swear to that. Again, download the trial and find out. The trial will cost you nothing, but at least you get to see what it looks like. What else? In the directory you show, it only shows the installer package. I don't know where it installed. Okay, Kevin, email me. And I'll show my email address. Hang on. Email me here at ian.barker@embarcadero.com and I'll try and find out. Tell me what the name of the package is you're installing and I'll tell you where it goes to. And if I don't know, I'll find out who does. Because the Get It guys that work on the package, I know very well and I can message them separately. So that's my email address. Which reminds me, by the way, if you are in Europe, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now for now anyway. If you're in Europe, or you can get to Europe, or you're going to be in Europe in June the 12th, I think, 13th. Let me find out. Hold on. I should know this. 13th and 14th. Okay, if you are in Amsterdam or can get to Amsterdam on June the 13th and 14th, you can meet me in person and tell me what you like and what you don't like and all the other things as well. Because I'm going to be doing the keynotes, or in fact 2 keynotes for the DelphiSummit.com. This is going to be a very big conference of people who are Delphi developers and so on and so forth. I'm not the only one that's going to be there. There's lots of very good people for Rad Studio and Delphi in general going to be there. Marco Cantu is doing a keynote as well, and all sorts of people will be turning up to talk. Every person you've ever gone, oh, I know that person. Dr. Bob, if any of you remember Dr. Bob 42, Dr. Bob was the guy back in the day for Delphi. Dr. Bob's going to be there talking. For example, Marco going to be talking. I'm going to be doing two sessions, one with Jim McKeith, which promises to be a little bit exciting, and then one on the second day as well. And it's Amsterdam, and they're holding it at a video games museum. How awesome is that? But I apologize if you can't get to Europe. I totally get it. So many conferences that I can never get to myself as well for the same reasons, and I know it really, really is awful. However, they're doing live streams from the event. I will also be personally streaming, chatting with a few people and doing some live streams throughout the 2 days, and saying hi to people and getting them on camera as well. So you will actually see us, and I think just about anybody who could be talking will be talking there as well. So it's absolutely amazing. Some people I've never met before but know very well are going to be there as well. So it's kind of exciting. Satisfy says, I'm in the Netherlands now at the time of typing. I'm in Vietnam. Oh, cool. There you go. So that's quite exciting, isn't it? Oh, you've got to come to Amsterdam. You could cycle there from Vietnam. I couldn't crawl there. Can I mix some styles in DB Grid MMC? Depends what you mean. Mix styles, do you mean own a drawer, or do you mean actually have styles on the grid? Yes, you can, is the answer. Some packages are expensive. Yes, if you looked at our webinar before about third-party components, I pointed you to Awesome Delphi, which was one of the websites. And let me just bring that up because I think I've still got it here. Awesome Delphi. No, I've removed it, unfortunately. Just look up Awesome Delphi or look at the video that we did previously about third-party components. There are lots of open source and free ones, and there's no shame in that. Most of them are brilliant, so go ahead and use it. Too bad I'm on a cruise to Norway. Would have loved to have been there and maybe give a session. Stefan, well, you're on a cruise to Norway, so I wouldn't feel too bad about that. I think that's great. Kat, are there still any time to come out? Right. Okay, Chris. This is a question about should we still be compiling 32-bit apps, or should one always compile 64-bit? Compile 32-bit. And the reason I say that at the moment is, first of all, the 32-bit compiler is very highly optimized at the moment. And secondly, most of your users are using 64-bit Windows. Most, but not all of them. I know that sounds weird, but it depends on what your target market is. If the target people that you're developing for are in the Western world and say they're in France or UK or United States or something like that, then they probably are using 64-bit Windows, and it's probably a fairly recent version, and they've got a processor that can support it all and work fine. However, that's not true for most people around the world. Many people are using machines that either struggle with 64-bit Windows or can't do 64-bit Windows. And therefore you are narrowing down who can actually run your apps. There is no reason why a 32-bit app can't run on a 64-bit Windows. I know because mine do. But I would say that 32-bit is still a safe option and is likely to be so for some time. There is some rumor that Microsoft Windows will go 64-bit only soon. We'll see how that works out, because you remember they said, oh, Windows 11 will only work if you've got a TPM module, and then they suddenly backtracked on that, and all of a sudden there's lots of ways around that. So I think they're more scared of losing customers than sticking to their principles. Yeah, the Interface Hall of Shame was my favorite slide. It says it all. Totally does. and you know, as a professional UI designer, I see so many apps where I'm like, oh dear God, what are you doing? You know, eyes on the purpose of what your app is supposed to achieve, and do it as simple as possible, clean as possible, and do not overload the customer with information. That's my secret. These gauges are worth it. Yes, I totally agree. And if you're interested in that movie, Objective Fibers movie we were talking about before, we're doing okay for time. We're a little bit late, but there you go. What is your opinion on that less code and AI source generating thing? Okay, so low code actually. Okay, so Rad Studio is effectively low code in the sense of low code that you have to write. And the fact that you're dropping components on your form and there's nice little packages of ready written code means that it's very easy to create a program with no code. I showed last week an app that does, you know, it's a weather app. I think I showed you all that. And it's cool. It looks nice. It looks modern, looks, you know, interesting, very flat. And there are 30 lines of code in it. And so really Rad Studio has always been about writing as few lines of code as possible, because the fewer lines of code you write, the fewer lines of code can have a bug in them. And that's really important thing that people will sometimes miss is if you don't have a lot of code and something's wrong, you know where to look. So my opinion about low code is yes, I think it's a good idea. And Rad Studio kind of does that. Now, actually, behind the scenes, there's a lot of lines of code, hundreds of thousands of lines of code, but you don't have to do anything to do with that. It's somebody else's problem. You just drop the components on and they work. AI source generation, right now, I would say, is a bit iffy. Because I've seen, you know, not just stuff writing Delphi code with the AI, but also C# code, because I can write in C#, Python code, and view the rest of them. And you know, when you see these AI images where they've got like 6 fingers or their arm is weirdly melted, and they say, oh, that's the problem with AI. Sometimes it hallucinates, so it gets the hand wrong and just thinks that humans have 6 fingers. I think it's deliberate, to be honest, but that's why it does it. Well, the same happens in code, except it's very subtle. Sometimes it will generate some code that looks like it's good. And you're like, oh, brilliant, it saved me loads of work. But you don't understand what that code does. And you include it in your program and it's wrong. And not just a little bit wrong, badly wrong. And that is, you know, that is a problem, I think, with AI at the moment. We personally, as a company, are investigating AI. We've talked to people and invited people to come talk to us about uses of it. I've written a paper myself about AI, potentials for AI in, you know, the company, and it's something we're interested in. You can't ignore it. Last year was a turning point, I think, for AI. I've been in the computer business for 40 years nearly. And I remember the IBM PC being released. I remember, you know, when I first started coding, we didn't even type in our programs. We had to write them out on a coding sheet and someone else typed them in because the terminals were expensive and we were cheap. I saw Windows be invented. I've seen, you know, the internet suddenly become a real thing and actually be usable after years of being, you know, Janet and stuff like that. So I've seen these sea change moments happen, and I'm telling you now, as some old guy that's been in the business quite a long time, that I think the AI last year became a tipping point, and it's not going away. When Microsoft invests $6 billion or whatever it was in OpenAI, they are not messing about. They're not playing games, and they wrong-footed Google, and they wrong-footed a few other companies, Meta being another one of them. Meta were already doing AI, and I think that Microsoft did something very, very clever. It is not going away, and so I think that although right now the AI source code generation is a little bit flaky, I've seen some examples internally from people demonstrating stuff to us, and I've actually personally seen external demos of AI stuff that's very, very interesting, very, very capable. Will it happen? Yes. I would like, for example, to be able to say AI, whatever the product is, create me a login screen that you can use for my application that's a banking application. And the AI goes away, designs the user interface using the best principles that I'm talking about today, with a font color that's appropriate, a theme of fonts, sizes, shading, scaling, everything. And it does it all for you in the AI and does it consistently the same every time. I think that's a good use of AI. I think another thing would be to say, instead of getting a compiler saying, error 75, you've done something horrible, the AI should say, hey, there's an error in your program here. You've made a mistake. Would you like me to fix it for you? And you say, yes, and it fixes it. Why shouldn't it do that? If it's good enough, it should be able to do that. So that's what I think about AI. I think we're, as an older guy who's been in the business a very long time, I think we're on the edge of something incredible. And Embarcadero and IDEA in general are not stupid. You know, we make mistakes, and I'm the first to put our hand up on behalf of the company when we screwed up. It happens. You know, the company is populated by human beings who sometimes make the wrong decisions and make the wrong choices. And you can argue about pricing, you can argue about X and Y, but one thing we are very good at is we're a very passionate group of people in Embarcadero. Every single person that works on Embarcadero, I don't know one that doesn't get up every day and is not full of beans about what we do and really passionate about it. Like, loves it, really wants Rad Studio to be successful, really wants Delphi to be successful. And every time we make a mistake, every time we do something wrong, we are our worst critics internally, and it's painful. And we are of the firm belief that AI is something interesting to look at and work out. And we right now, we want other people's opinions, our users and all the rest of it, to tell us what they think we shouldn't do and some ideas about what we think would work. And if you've got an idea that you know about AI, then please email me on that email address there. Okay, and we may include you if you've got sensible ideas. Then we may include you in our little discussion group, because we genuinely want people to come up with the answers as well, because we don't have all the answers. You know, we're only human, and barely, but we're, you know, it's important. So where are we? Okay, so power toys is the other thing that I talked about. Where are we in the chat? Let's have a look. Oh, good God. Could I demonstrate a graphical T-chart component that works like pass-through logic analyzer? I need to plot some 20 digital lines. Okay, the answer is I can't do that right now because it would take too long, but you can use T-chart to plot series, and all you would need are 20 series. It wouldn't be that difficult, to be honest. So series, you know, number of series 20. It depends how big your T-chart's going to be as well, because you're going to need it quite large if you're going to have 20 plot lines across. But that would work. You know, that would probably work. If you're not doing it with a T-chart component, then you could possibly do it with a skier. A skier draw surface, like a you know, drawing on a skier image like that and plotting the lines manually, and you'd probably get good enough performance that it would come out and it wouldn't shiver or shake. You'd draw it off on a buffer and then bring it to the screen, but I think they'd do it. Is the answer. Failing that, go to steema.com, steema.com. They are the people that create T-chart, and they have demos there, and they've got some examples of doing exactly that in their source code. So try going to Steema and have a look. What's this question? Oh, from you again. REST API is another DLL and Concord amounts are standardized, right? So AI maybe can actually, yes. These are some of the examples we already have in Get It. A number of different AI components. I'm not saying we haven't got them. I'm just saying that they're third party. So if I was to, I'm going to share my screen again in a second. But if I go into here and choose AI, let me just see. Yeah, so let me just share my screen a bit more. I'm sure Martha's gone by now, producer Martha, because I told her to go if she wanted to. But let's, yeah. So I'm gonna hide your question. So here's just a selection of the things you can add in the program already that would do, excuse me, Chat GPT and OpenAI type stuff. And there's actually a lot of them. Okay. Well, I've searched for AI, which was probably a bad choice because any word that's got AI in them, like navigation or something. But if you chose, I wonder if this works. Chat GPT. Will this work? There you go. So there's several open source free plugins already that will do Chat GPT. So if you want, excuse me, if you want an AI wizard in your app already, do that. There is also a video by Marco Heiser from GDK, from one of our, I think it was Coding Bootcamp. If you just search for Chat GPT, he builds one live during the webinar that he did with me, and you can see him, build a Chat GPT wizard. So we can do AI already. It's just whether that's really where we want to stop. I don't believe we should stop with that. I believe that we should keep going, and I think that we should. There's much more that we could do if we wanted to. With AI, I think that's just scratching the surface. Writing code is just one part of it. I don't want to go into all my ideas because some of the ideas might make it into a product. And whilst I want to help mankind in general, I don't want to help too many competitors, and so they get a march on what we've got. But I'm sure they've got some great ideas as well. Hopefully our ideas are better and win out. But AI is definitely something that everybody, I think, anybody is looking at because it's just too much to ignore. Now, will the robots take over and kill us all? That I don't know. I am creating this sword fighting robot, so anything's possible, but maybe not. Am I worried about my job because of AI? No, actually. Quite the opposite. We already use AI for certain things in-house. We generate some graphics and stuff like that sometimes with AI. We also use AI to proofread some text, and we pick things like SEO optimization and stuff like that using AI. So we do use AI internally in the company already, and I think most companies do without even realizing it. But we, I as personally as a technical person, I'm very excited about what's happening in the world. I think it's a great influence. So have you decided to fix the FireMonkey 3D issues? Yes, there were lots of fixes to do with FireMonkey. There are more coming, I believe. But will there be some kind of robot human check, says Satisbas? Have you ever seen that video of someone getting a robot to press the button that says, "Are you a robot?" and they're pressing no, or "Are you a human?" and they press yes? That's the problem, isn't it? Once the robots have got AI, then we're really in trouble. We shall see how it goes. But I don't think we're going to have an Armageddon right now. Maybe this video will be shown in 25 years when we're all enslaved by robots, and people go, "That guy was so wrong." The war of 2029, when the robot uprising happened, he was wrong. He was wrong, and now they've turned him into a head in a jar, which wouldn't be too different. So as Nigel says, the new interface will be between the original coder and the AI thingy, and the ability for you to say what you want in a way it understands. Well, the thing about large language models, which is what most generative AI is, which is what we're talking about, is that they actually create something new based on rules of other things that are similar that they've looked at. So, for example, if you were to try and if you trained it on Beatles songs, for example, and you said create a new Beatles song, what it would do is take all of the existing Beatles songs and pick out things that made them Beatles-like and made them popular songs from the 70s by the Beatles, and it would create something that sounded like a new Beatles track. Probably sounded something like Oasis, or, but that's what it would do. And so it's not taking existing Beatles tracks and then just putting samples in. It's actually taking the spirit of the Beatles song and making something that's got the spirit of the Beatles song in it. The same happens with the code, the AI. It would not necessarily regurgitate word for word the lines of code, although some of them have. It would take what you've said and take the words that you've said and the intent of what you want to do and try and create something that, based on its knowledge of coding in general with Delphi, would be original code based on what you've asked it to do. So you would still have to understand that you wanted a login screen and you wanted two-factor authentication and the ability to override and log in with Gmail or Google or log in with Meta. You'd need to understand that you wanted to do that, but not necessarily. So, you know, is it an interface between the original code and the AI? I don't know. And the same, if you were to tell it to generate a user interface, is it going to do a good one? Maybe. Is it going to look like others? Yes, because there's only so many variations of user interfaces, isn't there, for a login screen? You know, unless an AI comes up with something amazing. We're getting close. That's a fact. Yeah, I absolutely agree that we are getting close to where we will trust it. Yes, the tables connect to T-chart. Yeah. So 20 series, and that would do it. Mark, Greg, yes. You entered later. You'll find a replay later. Yes. Just to make it clear, I did say during the webinar, but let me just see if I can bring it up again. Here we go. So if I close my project for a second, and then I'm going to show you my screen. If I share my screen one more time, and then we're probably going to call it a day after this. I actually have to go and do something else. But if you look down the side here, if you've got recent version of RAD Studio, this is the welcome page. And all of the webinars that are recent, certainly ones that I've been doing, will appear in here, including this one now. So Mark, in some kind of like Inception dream and put in dreams, we're talking about this webinar and it'll appear in here as well. So you'll see it appear shortly. But go to YouTube as well and you'll see all the live events will be replayed as well. And there'll be a blog post to do it later. But don't worry, you know, nobody should miss a thing. And like I said, although I try to stick to an hour, I'll take as long as people need me to take. It's about community as much as anything else. You know, it's what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, well, look, I think it is time for me to go and do something else. I hope you found this interesting. I did try and have a lot of coverage of just a broader topic than just a user interface. The secrets of a good user interface are make it clear, don't put too much on it, make it usable, and make it scale so that when your screen goes big, things stretch and they scale properly. Later versions of RAD Studio will do that automatically. Earlier versions, you have to do some work on top as well. But if you pick the right components like panels and, you know, layout and stuff like that, then it will do it for you. But, it's always good to do these presentations so that I get some feedback from people who say, oh, what you said was wrong. All right, whatever. And thanks very much. And I know people like it because I do weirdly get a lot of emails from people saying thank you, which is odd. I honestly don't do it for the thanks, but thanks anyway for thanking me. And I really do mean it. My email address down there. If you've got a question about Embarcadero, if you think we're not listening, I'm not joking. Email me. Okay, it may take me a little while to respond because I get a lot of emails. But we are not a faceless corporation. If you try and email someone at Microsoft, with respect, you probably won't get a reply because they are very, very big and they've got a lot going on and they can't necessarily reply. We get, we've got 3.5 million people using the product, and so we get a lot of people contacting us. But that email address there, if you think you're not getting listened to by Embarcadero, or you've got a great idea, or there's something you like, or there's something you hate, email me, tell me. That's my job. That is literally my job. To reply to people and listen to them. So, don't be afraid to get in touch. That's developer advocate. That's my job. Anyway, before my voice goes, yes, and thank you for the advice on how to use Shadow. Yeah, you're welcome. There's all sorts of ways of doing it. Thomas says thanks. Bart says thanks, and Kevin says thanks. Francis says, I'm glad I joined in time for your interactive chat. I think AI is in its infancy and has to mature. So do I. Yeah, it's baby steps at the moment. It's literally a child. My personal assistant has been rewritten by Copilot. Thanks, Zoe. Yeah. Here's a funny thing. If you go into ChatGPT and say, who is Ian Barker of Embarcadero, it gives you a great big paragraph about who I am and what I do. It's very weird. I like freaking people out who say, that's a cheat. I'll try it. And they try it. And I'm like, oh my God, it really does know who you are. Yes, I'm quite well known. And other people go, well, I'll see what it says about me. And it says nothing about them. Just never heard of them. So, it's just a side effect of my job, really. I'm supposed to be around. So, Muzia says, thank you. Everything's thank you. Large font title. Thank you for your presentation. Yes. Well, thanks very much, everybody. Okay. Well, I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for all your advice and companionship, etc. And we will see you next time when we are talking about databases, which also might be a slightly long one as well, just because of how these things work. But in the meantime, have fun coding, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.